Hi, it's Stephanie, and this is lesson 28 of the B2 course. So, this lesson is going to be a grammar lesson, and we are looking at modals of deduction. So, my name's Stephanie, this is level B2, lesson 28. Now, if you remember in lesson 26, we also looked at the topic of modal verbs. Well, in lesson 28, we're going to simply focus on the use of must and can't. So we'll review how these verbs are used, and then we're going to practice using them for deduction. What do I mean by deduction? Well, I mean we're going to use logic to infer whether something is logically certain based on evidence, knowledge, or intuition, or whether something is logically impossible. So they're the two extremes we're going to be looking at in the lesson today. Okay, well, let's start with must. So if you believe that something is certain, you use must. Let's have a look at an example. If the postman always comes at 9 a.m., at 9 a.m. the doorbell rings, you say it must be the postman. Based on the evidence that you have, the postman always comes at 9 o'clock, you hear the doorbell ring, logically you can infer quite certainly that it must be the postman. Let's compare present and past certainty. So we've got two examples here. In the present, I live in Dubai. So you've got a present simple here. I live in Dubai. It must be hot. In the past, I lived in Dubai. You've got past simple there. So in the past, we use must have been hot. So we're still using the same modal verb because we're feeling certain about the situation. So we're using must, but we change the tense as you would do normally. So that's certainty. Let's have a look at impossibility. So if you believe that something is impossible, you need to use can't. So we don't use mustn't, we use can't. We'll use the same example. The postman always comes at 9. At 7, the doorbell rings. You believe it's impossible that it's the postman, so you say it can't be the postman, because in your mind, it's impossible. So when you think something can't be true, you need to use can't. Okay, so as with must, let's have a look at the difference between the present and the past construction. So present. Ben knows the route. He can't be lost. So you feel that it's impossible for Ben to be lost because Ben knows the route. So how can he be lost? So because you feel that this is impossible, you need to use can't. He can't be lost. However, in the past, Ben knew the route. So we've got past simple, knew. He can't have got lost. So the same idea, can't be lost in the present, can't have got lost in the past. Important to note here, you can also use couldn't. That would be the same. He couldn't have got lost. Ben knew the route. He couldn't have got lost. Can't or couldn't are interchangeable here. Okay, so just to review, if it's a present situation, you need the modal verb plus be. If it's a past situation, you need the modal verb plus have plus the past participle. So maybe just pause the slide here, take a note of that because that's quite important how it's constructed. Okay, let's have a look at some more examples. So let's compare present and past. this is the situation. You be tired. You slept for 10 hours last night. Okay, so you can't be tired. You slept for 10 hours last night. So I'm choosing can't in the present because the person slept for 10 hours. So I feel that it's impossible for them to be tired now. You can't be tired. It's impossible for you to be tired now because last night you slept for 10 hours. So let's compare. You have been tired. You slept for 10 hours last night. So this time the modal is in the past, referring to a past situation. You must have been tired. You slept for 10 hours last night. Because in this example, logically, you slept for 10 hours, so it's certain that you were tired. Before you started sleeping, you were tired because you needed 10 hours sleep. So this is an interesting way to compare how we can use present and past modals for deduction to make a logical conclusion. Okay, how are you finding it so far? Well, I think now is a good time for us to do some practice. Okay, so let's have a look at this slide. There are 6 statements. All I'm asking you to do is to choose must or can't. So is it logically certain or is it logically impossible? What do you think? Pause the slide and see if you can choose must or can't for each of the examples. So number 1, you've been travelling all day, you be tired. Number 2, you have tried very hard, you only got 10%. Number 3, the restaurant be good, it's always empty. Number 4, the business be doing well, the staff have new cars. Number 5, I gave you my number, you have forgotten it. And number 6, you have finished already, you only started 5 minutes ago. So pause the slide. Is it logically certain or logically impossible? Okay, how did you find that? Shall we check the answers together? Okay. Number 1, you've been travelling all day, you must be tired. Number 2, you can't have tried very hard, you only got 10%. Number 3, the restaurant can't be good, it's always empty. Number 4, the business must be doing well, the staff have new cars. Number 5, I gave you my number, you must have forgotten it. And number 6, you can't have finished already, you only started 5 minutes ago. Okay, so remember, it's you applying your logic. Sometimes it's very clear. If somebody's been travelling all day, logically you would expect them to be tired. But sometimes you are applying your knowledge and your intuition to an example. Well done if you got all of those correct. Okay, we're going to move on to another practice activity. And this time we're going to practice the construction must or can't plus have plus a past participle. So we're looking at modals for deduction in the past in this example, and you're going to need to decide, firstly, is it must or can't, and secondly, which verb would logically make the sentence complete. So complete each sentence with must or can't plus have plus a past participle. Number 1. Nick was at the gym yesterday. He's in China. Number 2, you pleased when you got into the university of your choice. Number 3, there was so much traffic, there an accident. Number 4, Stuart, you last night, his phone isn't working. And number 5, there's nobody home, they out. So, how can you logically complete these sentences? So think about them, read them again, pause the slide. How would you complete the must or can't plus have and a past participle? Okay, let's look at the answers together. Okay, so number 1, Nick was at the gym yesterday. He can't have been. He's in China. Logically impossible. If I believe Nick's in China, he can't have been at the gym. Number 2, you must have been pleased when you got into the university of your choice. Logically, you imagine somebody must be, you're certain, very pleased. Number 3, there was so much traffic, there must have been an accident. And again, here, this is an example of you applying your logic. There's more traffic than normal. It's very unusual. Logically, something must have happened. Number 4, Stuart can't have phoned you last night. His phone isn't working. If his phone isn't working, it's impossible that he phoned you. And number 5, there's nobody home. They must have gone out. Again, they're not in. You've tried the doorbell. Nobody's answering. Logically, you think they must have gone out. Of course, they could just be in and choosing not to answer, but maybe logically you deduce that they must have gone out. How did you find that? Hopefully you managed to get some of those correct. Important thing really is that in that example is I'm looking for the must or the can't. Remember, you are using a past participle, so be careful if it's irregular. For example, go, went, gone. They must have gone out, not they must have went out. So well done if you're getting some of these correct. That's really great. Okay. We've got more practice. So let's have a look at some examples before we start. So we're going to read the situations and complete using must have or can't have. So I'm going to give you some prompts as well. So let's look at this example together. The car you bought is good quality, and the hints I'm giving you are is it and expensive. How would you respond to this? Somebody's bought a car, you think it's good quality, you say it must have been expensive. The car you bought is good quality, it must have been expensive. Let's look at an example using can't have. There are still marks on the jacket. You wash it properly are the hints I've given you. So if there are still marks on the jacket, how could you complete this? You can't have washed it properly. There are still marks on the jacket. You can't have washed it properly. So I'm going to give you some similar situations and I'll give you some hints as well. So I'll give you some words that you should perhaps try to use in your answers. There might be other options, so if you want to be creative, but the important thing here is that we're practicing must and can't. Let's have a look. Number 1. When I got home, my front door was unlocked. And my hints here are forget and lock. Number 2, I can't find my purse. And your hints are leave and other bag. Number 3, last year Sarah lost her job and got divorced. And my clue here is easy for her. Number 4, Tim isn't at his desk. Clue, go home already. And number 5, I haven't received my invitation. Send yet. So how can you complete a sentence using the hints that I've given you with must have or can't have? So please pause the video, pause the slide here and see if you can make 5 sentences for me using must have or can't have and the hints that I've given you. So pause the slide. Okay, how did you find that? Hopefully the hints were helpful. They were intended to be, to give you a clue. Let's have a look at the answers. Number 1, when I got home, my front door was unlocked. I must have forgotten to lock it. Number 2, I can't find my purse. I must have left it in my other bag. Number 3, last year Sarah lost her job and got divorced. It can't have been easy for her. Number 4, Tim isn't at his desk. He must have gone home already. And number 5, I haven't received my invitation. It can't have been sent yet. Well done, really well done if you got some of those correct, because it's quite challenging. So that's really, really good if you are getting some of these right, or all of these right. Excellent. Okay, let's move on. So this time we're going to have a look at 3 different situations, and I'm asking you, what would you say? How would you respond in these different situations? Number 1, somebody says to you, I live very close to work. You say, great. Number 2, this person has to commute for 1 hour to get to the office. You say, oh dear. And number 3, this person has a new job. So you say, congratulations. So I've left this completely open to you, but remember we are practicing must and can't. Think about if it's in the present or the past, and think how you could respond to these 3 very real but different situations. So pause the slide here and see if you can make 3 responses for me. What would you say in these situations? Okay, hopefully you have 3 answers ready for me. Let's have a look at some possibilities. So these are my ideas of what I would say in these situations. Number 1, somebody tells me they live very close to work. I'd say, great, that must be convenient. It's certain, I feel like it's logically certain you live close to work. That must be convenient. On the other hand, number 2, this person has to commute for 1 hour to get to the office. Oh dear, that can't be cheap. Of course, you could have the opposite here and say that must be expensive, that must be difficult, but here I chose that can't be cheap. And number 3, I have a new job. Congratulations, you must be pleased. Again, logically certain. So all of these are in the present. I live close to work. I have to commute. I have a new job. So your responses, in each situation, you're using a modal in the present. Must be convenient, can't be cheap, must be pleased. Okay, so our final activity today, we've done a lot of practice in this lesson. This time, we're going to have a look at another 3 situations and same idea. How would you respond? What would you say to these people? Number 1, we have just been traveling in Mexico for 1 month. Wow! Number 2, I was made redundant last year. Oh dear. Number 3, I accidentally burnt my hand on the hob last night. Ouch. Just a vocabulary point here. Hob. What is a hob? Okay, well, a hob is if you're cooking, when you're cooking, you have the oven, but the area at the top where you put the saucepans, the rings, usually 4 rings, these are the hobs. So very easy to burn your hand on the hob if you're cooking and you're not paying attention. So 3 different situations. Wow, oh dear, and ouch. How would you respond? So again, pause the slide and see if you can write 3 responses for me. Okay, let's check together. Number 1, we've just been traveling in Mexico for 1 month. Wow, that must have been amazing. Number 2, I was made redundant last year. Oh dear, that can't have been easy. Number 3, I accidentally burnt my hand on the hob last night. Ouch, that must have hurt. So here you'll note we're using the past because the person is referring to the past. In sentence 1, the travelling happened in the past. Number 2, redundant last year. And number 3 is last night. So the responses are must have been, can't have been, must have hurt. Really well done if you are getting these correct. Hopefully in these last 2 slides, you will see that this use of modal verbs is very common in social situations as well, when you're interacting with people and you're responding to something that they're telling you. You're reacting to good news, bad news. But the important thing is in choosing your modal, you are giving the listener an indication as to your opinion. You think it's certain, you think it's impossible. And as we said with lesson 26, that's the key thing with modal verbs. They do convey something to the listener. We have done a lot of practice in this lesson. If you want to do more practice, remember there is a short test at the end of this video. So why not have a go at that? If you are thinking, I want to do some more practice, by all means, go back and review some of the key slides. We will also refresh and review this topic in lesson 30. But our next lesson together, lesson 29, will be a vocabulary lesson, and we're going to be talking about the body. So we're going to be building our vocabulary to talk about the human body, and we're going to have a look at some idiomatic expressions that are commonly used in English using parts of the body. So it's a really fun lesson, lesson 29. I hope to see you then. Thank you very much for watching the lesson. I hope you found it useful and enjoyable. See you next time. Goodbye.